Please rise to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Burstein? Here. Mr. Levy?
Present.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Here.
Ms. Prupus?
Here.
Mayor Eglo?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the October 16, 2018 Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We will do reports. I will start. Welcome. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I want to wish everyone a happy and lucky Chinese New Year, the Year of the Pig. There was a wonderful celebration at the high school which showcased many talented residents of all ages, and 3 residents were honored: Peter Liu, Philip Chung, and Jack Oyang. I also attended the fire department's annual dinner where I presented plaques to 4 firefighters who were honored for 25 years of service, and I would like to acknowledge them publicly. Captain Russell Lynn, Captain Christopher Beatty, firefighter Carl Merle, and firefighter Donald Arnhammer. These are a super dedicated group of guys with an amazing sense of humor, and we just really want to thank them. One of the meetings I attended since we've last met was the joint meeting, our sewer authority, and they're on target with their capital improvement project. We have contacted JCP&L about changing the township's existing lights to LED where appropriate. This would start at the parking lot at the Short Hills train station and along Chatham Road. Some of the fixtures need to have their ballast changed out, and this is all on the to-do list. We hear your concerns for better lighting at the train stations, and we agree this is really important. We have received positive feedback on the reflective bollards that have been placed at the Short Hill station, and the engineering department is currently working on plans of what other measures should be taken and what construction projects should move forward at the Short Hills train station. And I want to know that what you all know, I saw in Happy Millburn that a resident, Melissa Goldberg, started a petition, and we look forward to its results and suggestions by the people who are the users of the Short Hills train station. We want to work with you and hear what is important to you for changes for safety and lighting at the Short Hills train station. And in the meantime, I just want to really reiterate that we ask all our residents to please use caution while walking and driving in town. Please use your cell phone flashlight apps. Wear something reflective. Please do not speed, do not use your cell phone when driving. We're all neighbors in the community. If you can leave 5 minutes earlier, if you can drive home 5 minutes slower, get home. We're all neighbors and we all want to take care of each other. Last week, Millburn hosted the Mayor's Council for Rawway Flood Control and waterways clear of debris. I will continue to work with Alex and DPW to assess what areas are in need of constant attention. While attending the New Jersey Planning Conference in Rutgers, I sat in a lot of good seminars, and one was Building Steam for Gateway. This project is ready and the funding must be approved. The plan differs from the ARC that was canceled because the Gateway is also looking to build 2 new tracks and a new tunnel, but this will go directly into Penn Station. And just so you realize, the current 10 miles of tracks under the Hudson are 100 years old, serve 450 trains a day. This is tens of thousands of commuters, many of which are coming from our 2 train stations. And as many of you know, when the Portal Bridge gets stuck, no trains move. And I learned that literally a New Jersey Transit employee goes out with a sledgehammer and bangs to get the tunnel unstuck. So it's archaic. This project is just about shovel ready. It just needs the funding. And I was asked to pass on this address, buildgateway.org. Please go online, sign up onto this webpage, buildgateway.org. It'll show you a map. It'll show you all the plans, it'll show you everything that they're talking about, which is just so important for our community. And lastly, the high school is having a fundraiser for the class of 2020 this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at California Pizza Kitchen at the mall. They will be giving 20% back for all purchases that will go to the class of 2020. There's some flyers on the table. Please try to go there this weekend. Support our high school kids. Okay, other reports. Committeewoman Burstein.
I had a meeting of the Library Board of Trustees, and on May 7th, 2019 at 7 p.m., they will have Spring Museum Night. Vivian Gordon will be discussing Renaissance portraiture. And the Friends are celebrating their 40th anniversary this year, so they're looking forward to some celebratory programming. And they're also going to be instituting some sensory-friendly programs, so stay tuned for that.
Thank you. Committeewoman Lieberberg.
Tara and I attended the January 16th PTOC traffic meeting that was concentrated in the Knollwood section, which is the area that is right by the middle school. And the issues of traffic congestion and safety is particularly noteworthy in that area. There are no sidewalks. The streets are very narrow. So with the help of the police department, the principal, the superintendent, and local residents, there will be changes made at the Hawthorne and Haddonfield locations to better direct the flow of drop-offs and allow Whitney Road as the access for teachers only. The Knollwood Civic Association, which consists of the local residents of Hobart, Whitney, Haddonfield, Midhurst, and Ottawa, will be participating in the execution as parent representatives, and it is slated to begin on Monday, February 25th. So that's very good news for those residents and the students at Millburn Middle. January 28th, the Board of Ed and the TC liaisons also had their first monthly leadership meeting, and that was attended by the president of the Board of Ed. And going forward, these monthly meetings will keep both the Township Committee as well as the Board of Ed informed on a variety of community issues, happenings, and events, and to encourage greater communication and drive participation in those events throughout the township. January 30th, I attended the MMAC Millburn Municipal Alliance Committee meeting on March 20th. That was about marijuana, your new neighbor. Talked about the legal issues for the school-age community, the current state of the legislation, which has stalled in the state in a big way, and the big issue continues to be the revenue participation for local taxes. It was also mentioned that on March 20th, MMAC will have a 7 o'clock meeting hosting what they're calling an evening of conversation to discuss mental health issues, bullying, substance abuse, and any other issues in the township that mandate anybody's attention, both the school community as well as the community at large. And there will be a performance by the mental health players that evening as well. It's at 7 o'clock. The location will be confirmed, and I will keep you informed, as well as look for the flyers around the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Committeewoman Prupas.
I have no reports.
Committeeman Levy.
No report.
Thank you. Alex, Business Administrator.
Yeah, just one brief report. Reminder to everybody that today Highland and Hobart changed to an all-way stop. So there's new stop signs, new street markings, and certainly, it's a day earlier than we had anticipated, but we had really great weather today. Hopefully everybody got to enjoy it, but just wanted to let you know, use caution in the area, make sure you're adhering to that four-way stop.
Thank you. Attorney Kit.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I want to report on the status of the township's current builder's remedy lawsuit in which the township is a defendant, brought by 85 Woodland LLC. Judge Gardner convened a case management conference on January 24th, which was attended by Millburn, by 85 Woodland LLC, the Fair Share Housing Group, which is a housing advocacy group for pushing affordable housing, and Special Master Banish. The judge decided three things on that occasion. Firstly, he extended Millburn's immunity against further builders' remedy lawsuits from January 31 out to May 3rd. He ordered the developer to submit revised plans to the special master and to Millburn by February 15th. And he directed the parties to set up a conference call with him on April 12th to report on the status of the mediation. Obviously, Millburn continues to participate in the confidential mediation, which is going forward under the auspices of the Superior Court, Judge Gardner presiding, where he has had his special master call the parties together to see if there might be a basis upon which the case could be resolved, upon the failure of which he would take the case back to his trial list and try the case. There are basically two alternative paths, at least at this point, that can eventuate, that normally eventuate. I'm not at liberty to discuss the particulars of what's transpiring at the mediations, what information is being exchanged, what negotiations are underway, what positions the parties have taken, because it's a confidential mediation under the court's direction. I can't come here and report to you what has been said or written. But as I just indicated, he has made the developer submit another set of plans for the review by Millburn and the parties in the mediation, and of course by the special master for February 15th. If the mediation results in a settlement, then the judge will hold a noticed hearing. He'll hear testimony, if any is offered. Normally there's some testimony in connection with a settlement. He will also hear from Fair Share. Now, you heard me say that Fair Share was present at the case management conference. That's because they're in every one of these affordable housing cases, having been designated by the Supreme Court as the advocacy group, which is to be on the lookout to make sure that the interests of low and moderate income people are being considered as these settlements are done. And they normally weigh in quite heavily in that interest, and they will have to be attended to in connection with any such settlement. If the court is satisfied that the settlement accomplishes the objectives that are sought to be accomplished through the provision of affordable housing, he will sign an order which directs Millburn to comply with the settlement agreement, take the measures that are set forth in the settlement agreement, and he'll set up a compliance schedule of when he wants to see that happen. If a settlement does not eventuate from this mediation, then he'll try the case, and he'll decide, after taking into consideration defenses that the township has offered with respect to the case, the judge will be in the position of deciding what will be constructed on that site, and he will set up an order compelling Millburn to live up to that, and he'll create also a compliance schedule over which time he'll want to see steps take place. The steps ordinarily on both of those prongs involve the development of an ordinance, and then the matter would come, this is after the judge has approved the settlement. One of the items in the order will be that the project has to come to the site plan here, for site plan approval at the planning board here, for approval, of course consistent with the plan that's attached to the settlement agreement, but nevertheless for review and for a public hearing with respect to that. So I know that's kind of a thumbnail sketch. I also know that is minus some of the specific information that people have wanted to hear from either members of the mediation team or from myself. But as I said, we're simply not at liberty at this point to discuss those things. So that's my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, George, I'm sorry. Our county representative.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Township Committee. Just a couple announcements. On Monday, February 25th, the county executive is holding his State of the County address, and he extends his invitation to everyone tonight. That'll take place at 7 p.m. at the Donald M. Payne Technical School in the city of Newark. Also, the prosecutor's office is having a internship program for any interested high school junior that's interested in criminal justice. There is an application. That deadline is coming up. It's on March 11th. It's on the county's website. And I just have two, I guess, updates from the last meeting. I was dealing with Alex on two issues. One we discussed was crosswalks, which I think came up at the last meeting about repainting certain crosswalks throughout town. I did send the note to DPW. Winter is not the time that they do crosswalks. Even though it's warm out today, it's typically not this warm. But, and I was told that they usually do those types of improvements in the spring, and those crosswalks are scheduled to be done this spring. The other issue was a traffic signal on Millburn Avenue. A concerned citizen stated that the pedestrian signal was not facing the crosswalk. A crew was out at that site. They're going back out tomorrow. They're going to remedy that sign and attempt to fix also the push buttons were not working. So I will keep Alex updated on the progress with that. But they are scheduled to go out tomorrow.
Thank you.
And that's my report.
Question, a lot of people are very concerned about the Ultra Hills Road and Parsonage Hill Road. When will that be paved? Give us a promise,
I don't know. I will follow up though.
please. The
Okay.
condition of those roads are really bad. It's gonna get worse if we have snowstorms and more salt on the roads.
Okay.
When's the earliest the county normally would start paving?
Usually, the plants are closed now. It could be as early as late March, but usually they don't start paving until April.
April.
That's usually the time frame.
George, I also hate to do this but the stretch of Millburn Avenue in front of the high school is starting to get deteriorated as well, so maybe that, if they could take a look at that.
I would just ask Alex if you could just send me an email, and I will then take that and forward it up to the powers that be and DPW and see if I can get you a schedule.
Good, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
We have moved public comment at the beginning of the agenda. We got positive feedback on that, so we're going to continue with that. So now, I would like to say, when invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or committee member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the Township Clerk's office at cgaddy@millburntwp.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Does any member of the public have any comments?
Good evening, Dave Cosgrove, 99 Oakview. First of all, Mr. Falcone, thank you for that report. I do appreciate it. You can imagine I'm going to have a specific question. The court order, or the draft of the court order that's now on file with the court, states that there's a conceptual settlement. Is that correct?
The correspondence?
No, the court order act that orders them to produce the plans by not this Friday, next Friday, specifically states that there's a conceptual settlement. Is that true?
Look, I think I have put that along. I think.
And it's not just does it say that? I want to know if that's a fact or not. Whether there's a conceptual settlement of this lawsuit.
What the parties settled upon was a set of revisions that they want to see made by the developer, which is to be produced in this next round of plans. That will then have to be reviewed by the group to see that whether or not that's satisfactory or not. But I couldn't say there's a conceptual settlement.
Okay.
There will have to, in any event, conceptual settlement, is like words in the air. I mean, there was discussion. The case, if it gets settled, will be settled when there's a written agreement that details every aspect of this.
Okay, now, and the second question I had is, I understand, you know, the statements that you've made about mediation and it being confidential. The way I read the mediation rules, you can certainly ask the other side if it's all right to disclose certain things that are happening. And the question really for the board here is, you know, is whether you direct your attorney to do that. As I stand here right now, there's, the way I read the court order, there's a settlement of this case. Everyone knows what the terms are, or the proposed terms are, even if they might get tweaked a little bit. Everyone knows but me. I'm assuming that Cheryl knows it, Diane probably knows it, you were at the meetings, council certainly knows it. I spoke with the lawyer for the housing committee. He doesn't know what the answer is either. And I'd be happy.
You mean fair share?
Yeah, fair share. Thank you. But so the short is, you know, the question is, I truly think you could direct your attorney to say, we want to disclose things to the public. If everyone knows about this settlement but us, let's find out what's out there, even if it changes a little bit. That's the question, I guess, in the request. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Bill Kirsch, 93 Cedar Street. Mayor Iglo, could you tell us something in general about the what the meeting was, the closed meeting before this meeting? Just the subject or whatever in general you can tell us about it?
We are interviewing our professionals. We put out RFPs to relook at in a transparent form. RFPs, our profession, right? We're looking at our hiring and re-interviewing our current professionals and seeing what areas we might want to make some changes.
Okay, thanks. And do I understand that the public comment will be only at the beginning? So if we have anything that comes up from new business or from a first reading of an ordinance, we have to hold that until the next meeting?
We have one thing on the new business agenda, and if there is comment, we will be able to speak to that new business item, correct? But right now, this is for public comment, things you want to bring up to us that you'd like us to look into or be aware of, certain things in town that we might not know is on your mind.
Yeah, okay, because I think it's a good idea, a good move to move this up to the beginning. My only concern had been if something comes up in the course of the meeting and someone has a question they didn't have at the beginning, that they have a chance for public comment then.
Yes, we
Thank
will
you.
allow you to do that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Deborah Nevis, 65 Knollwood Road. Just to follow up on what's going on in the Woodland proposed settlement, I was wondering if you could talk at all about upon what kind of criteria the revisions are based for that'll be submitted by Silverman to the court.
No, I'm afraid I can't. I think you're asking me to tell you what we've asked them to go back and do.
Well, I mean, what it says in the court documents is that that there's been conceptual agreement to something which will be reflected in revised site plans. So.
Yeah, actually a whole bunch of different kinds of plans, yes.
Okay, so that you can't
No.
speak to. Okay.
I want to, you know, it's a difficult position to be in. I get it. Mr. Cosgrove, Mrs. Cosgrove, the people in the neighborhood, yourself, you're all legitimately interested. What is going to be constructed ultimately if something comes into being on this property in our neighborhood? But just so everybody understands, it's not like we're stiff-arming everybody or preventing people from getting information which they're otherwise entitled to get. Every memo I get from the special master, and I have one I'm looking at, says confidential on the top. If I were to come here and read this to the audience, I would find myself in front of Judge Gardner next week, who will say to me, Falcon, what about the word confidential? Don't you understand? The terms that are in negotiation and discussion were simply not free at this point to discuss in a public forum.
Can't hurt to ask, though.
I know, I understand.
My next question is, you had said something about whatever the settlement ultimately is, I'm assuming there's going to be a settlement, it's not going to go to trial, is going to come to the township committee or the planning board?
No, what'll happen is, if there's a settlement agreement, the township committee has to approve the settlement agreement. Then it goes back off to the courthouse. If the judge approves the settlement, then down the road, there'd be an application by the developer to the planning board here for
And-
site plan review.
I mean, how pro forma is that approval by the township committee? Can the township committee really say no to something that all the parties have agreed to already?
Well, yes, I mean, the township committee would be called upon to vote on the settlement.
And
I
is
mean,
that,
I couldn't say they would be obliged to vote for it. They are public officials, they are elected to reflect the views of the community, they will exercise their discretion.
and if that is a no, then it would go to trial at that point if the settlement was
Well,
rejected?
If there was not a settlement, then it would go to trial, yes.
Okay, all right. My final thing I wanted to say is the special master and the court aware of the pedestrian death that occurred a couple of weeks ago on the corner there? I'm asking because it increases concerns that neighbors have brought up about traffic and increased traffic with all those apartments plus additional offices for Summit Medical Group. And I'm just wondering if that's going to be shared with the special master, with the court, and whether that will be taken into consideration, given that we've expressed those concerns before this tragedy actually occurred. And now there's going to be even more traffic on that corner and in that neighborhood.
I can't say that they would have to have gotten to that piece of information by reason of reading the paper or something. That is not something that has been discussed in the mediation. Certainly, traffic considerations and pedestrian safety will be part of the whole mix.
Couldn't it be brought to them, though, now that if the township, as a representative of the township, this has actually now happened. So since traffic has been discussed as a concern, couldn't this be added to the concerns that have already been brought to the special master and to the court?
Well, members of the mediation team are here. They're hearing you. I'll leave it to them to.
Okay, please.
We will bring it to their attention.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Dennis Estes, 333 Lupine Way, Short Hills. Just a couple of questions along the same line, if I may. After the revised plans are submitted at February 15th, will those be made public?
No. Those will then have to be reviewed. They will become public. None of the documents or the conversations in the mediation become public documents.
Well, I understand I understand the concept very well,
Okay.
being a mediator myself.
Oh, then, all right.
But my question is, they're going to be submitting plans to the township's committee on as part of the mediation.
The mediation team, yes.
Mediation team.
Mhm.
I'm assuming that one of two things are going to happen. Well, one of three things are going to happen. Either the team's going to reject it outright, the team's going to accept it, or the team is going to say, look, you have to modify it if you're looking to get our approval. Will there be a point in time before this township committee votes on a final settlement that all of this information, not the discussions during the mediation, but what is being proposed as part of a settlement will be made public before the township votes?
Yeah.
We
Yes.
came an agreement, I spoke with Mr. Cosgrove, and what we decided that would most likely work is after we've approved the plan, we would bring it to the public. We will have Frank Banish, the master, come to the township committee and make a presentation for all of the residents to hear. You will have time beforehand to know about those plans. You can come speak to us. We will not be voting at that meeting.
Okay, that answers my
Yes, that's
question.
the agreement that we thought
The only
was
other
fair.
question I had, has the fair share housing intervened in the case?
No, they're in all of them.
I know they're all in all of them, but have they actually formally intervened?
Yes, they attended the case management conference the other day, and we expect to have them review things going forward.
Have they taken, without telling me what position they're taking, have they taken a position as part of their mediation effort?
Not so far.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sharf, somebody's ahead of you.
I know.
Okay. So you have your yellow jacket that we were pleased with.
The standout. He and I fought it out in the back of the room. Lynn Ranieri, 94 Oakview. I just have a very quick thank you for handling the traffic issue I had. I cannot impress upon you how hair-raising that intersection is. However, that was the intersection of, Millburn Avenue and Ridgewood Road. Yesterday when I was walking there, I was standing behind a 12-year-old boy at the intersection of Wyoming and Millburn Avenue. And that little boy was banging and banging and banging on the thing. And I looked up, and now that's disappeared there, too. There is no little signal with the white crossing figure that it's okay. So he and I just took our chances, shot across. So if you could please add that to the list and find out what happened to that, too. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Can I go on?
Please.
Okay. Josh Sharf, 11 Hawthorne Road, Short Hills. First of all, Lunar New Year, Gangxi Fasai, happy Lunar New Year. I've come here in the past to talk about 28 Whitney Road, which was moving along, and all of a sudden it started moving along when it was discovered that there was a student registered to that property. And all of a sudden, they started working. It was a dilapidated property. Nobody could live in it. But it illustrates and illuminates a problem that we have in this town where there are a lot of people taking advantage of the system. There are towns in New Jersey, quite a number of them, who've adopted an ordinance penalizing people who have done so. The pivotal issue is that, according to the state, if one is found to have violated or having kids in the system, the school system, illegally, the school district can only claw back 1 year's worth of tuition. The ordinance, and I have a number of copies for you from different towns, allow a town to, first of all, control costs by having it at the municipal level, through the municipal court, and to claw back everything, including not only tuition, but expenses. It also provides certain examples provide lien ability, that in the event that it's not paid, or they can't pay, or they don't want to pay, there's the ability to slap a lien on the property. Towns like Woodland Park, Ewing, Bloomfield, Little Falls, Florence, Hamilton, Woodbridge, others, and these are the examples that I have. Now, there's been a lot of conversation about this, and you'd say, this is a Board of Ed matter. It's not. Other towns see it not a Board of Ed matter, it's a township matter. If somebody lives in Union, and they could send their children to the Millburn School District, it devalues our property. It creates a problem for us, because why in the world would you buy in Millburn if you could live in Union and send your kids here? Similarly, if you run a business here in town, I own property. I know that if not in this town, commercial property, but if I have a bump in my real estate taxes, it's a pass along to my tenants, to my commercial tenants. And it's unfair to the commercial tenants here in town to have to carry that kind of burden. There's a myriad of other issues, infrastructure issues, traffic issues that this brings about. In the past, the conversation, there's really two buckets of kids that I've found who are coming here illegally. One of them is border
hoppers, and it's been characterized or it's been thought about as being poor kids. They're not poor kids. And I have some examples of it here, and I certainly won't disclose the names of the children, but describe the properties, and with the appropriate non-disclosure forms, I'd be more than happy to share it with the Township Committee, but I'll run through some examples.
Mr. Scharf, may I ask you, what is it you're hoping to, first
I hope that the Township adopts an ordinance that allows the town to claw back all tuition, regardless of the number of years, and secondly, to direct an audit of the school district of the enrollment.
Okay, can I say that we will definitely look into that with the administrator and our attorney?
Can't I go through this?
Okay.
I know that there's nothing on TV tonight. I know there's
President Trump.
I know there's nothing on TV tonight, as a matter of fact. So I just want to go through this very quickly, and I'll talk very quickly. I'll speed talk.
Okay, speed talk.
Okay.
I'll speed listen.
First example is a residence in Summit, a $2 million residence. They were sending their kids here for a number of years. Last name starts with an S. There's a family in Mountain Lakes. And by the way, that first one was renting an apartment at 510 Millburn Avenue. And as we know, it has nothing to do with rental. It has to do with domicile.
Do you want to just leave those with us? And we
No, because I can't, because this is confidential information. I don't want to, because this is disclosing children's confidential.
Have you shared that with the Board of Ed?
Yes, I have, and they do nothing. And in fact, every single one of these have been reported. There's one live one, and they do nothing. They do nothing because the higher the enrollment, the higher the budget.
Okay, I will definitely look into this.
Anyway.
And we have some Board of Ed members here, and they hear you.
Yes, they hear me. They've heard me before.
Okay.
In fact, you have a board member who is sitting, a former board member who's over here, and I'd be more than happy to talk to them.
Okay.
The other part, the other bucket, and I said there's two buckets. The first bucket has to do with people jumping borders. And, again, I could go through examples. The second bucket is that there is quite a number of kids who are coming here under B2 tourist visas and stay here with host families.
Is that under our jurisdiction before you go on?
No, well, what you do is it's not necessarily under your jurisdiction, but if you were to pass this ordinance, it will penalize the host families who are taking care of and profiteering off the kids staying there. Okay?
I will investigate that with our attorney.
Okay, and I'll provide you the information.
Please, thank you.
Okay, so this is information.
Here's that. I'll sit there.
Now, in 2014, there was an audit of the school district. It demonstrated that there was an enormous amount of kids here who did not belong here. And it was not followed up. I think John Westphal Kwong at the time was president of the board. They came up with one kid. There are, over here, according to the audit,
You go ahead.
according to D&B audit, there were hundreds of kids who do not belong here. Hundreds of kids who do not belong here. And hundreds of kids who do not belong here. Hey, Sam, you could shake your head as much as you want.
Your reports were widely discredited, Mr. Scharf.
What? It's not my report. It's verified residence. And, in full disclosure, Sam wrote a letter in 2013 asking for evidence, which I provide.
It was discredited. All your evidence was discredited.
All the evidence was discredited. In fact, even the kid who graduated last year, #1 in the grade in high school.
I'm not having this dialogue.
Right, how about, Mr. Scharf, if you want to come in and I'll have a private meeting with you, and we can discuss this
Oh, that's
further.
exciting. But in the meantime,
Okay, well, I have office hours on Wednesday morning, so make it.
over here?
Yes, 11 o'clock. Okay.
Here are the ordinances.
Okay, thank you.
Here's one for you and one for
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Now, if, it seems to have created quite a conversation there.
I know, okay.
You know what happened with
But I'd be more than willing to answer any questions
Okay,
and any information I could provide.
okay. I would be very happy to hear from you.
And again, it's not only me, it's dozens of townships within the state.
Okay,
Okay?
I promise to look into this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Louis Shen, 23 Canterbury Lane. When I was standing up, I wasn't planning on speaking on this issue, but I happen to be a board of the, I happen to be a board member, and my colleague John Westfall is here, and my colleague Owen Alawabi is here as well. And they are, I mean, unfortunately, this gentleman has been coming to the BOE for quite a bit in the past couple of years. And we took his accusation, given the severity of his accusation, very seriously. And we went through with several investigations. And after a waste of taxpayer money, the money could have gone to different programs and paying for teachers, we found very little evidence that support his claim. So given that, we just decided not to pursue that issue anymore. So if he has new evidence, we're more than willing to hear from him. So feel free to come to our meeting and speak to us. Now, on a lighter note, I'm here to express appreciation for the mayor and the deputy mayor to show up for our Lunar New Year celebration on Sunday. It was a very successful event. More than 1,000 people came. Yes, and we had fireworks, we had line dance, we had both gyms reserved for games and food. And the show, hopefully you guys enjoy the show as well.
Yes.
I just want to say, like, based on my own personal experience, the people I've known, I think the issues that kind of divide us are usually issues that are kind of far away from us, like how we feel about the president, right? What's the progress on global warming, that sort of thing. But what really unites us are the things that are close to us. For example, be it Chinese, Indian, local residents that were born here, had generations here, we all want our kids to do better. We want them to receive the best education. We want to be conveniently located to New York City so we can go to work. We want a nice lifestyle in this town. We want this town to keep improving. So if we focus on those things, we stand stronger than ever. And a little bit fun doesn't hurt. So, for example, the Lunar New Year celebration, it was an event that was open to all. It was the part of it was free, especially the gaming part. But however, not enough people knew about it. Even some of my fellow Chinese American community members didn't know about it. So in the future, I hope we can work closely together and make those events known. Whatever difference we can hash over a beer, so we can have a lot of fun together and get to know each other better. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We do. We need help.
Good evening, Ed Mazer, Greenwood Drive. Just a very quick question. We've had an application for a 24-hour food service at the corner of Vauxhall and Ridgewood Road. That application has been withdrawn. Is there any work being done under the direction of the Township Committee to look into an ordinance governing hours of operation for businesses within the township?
Yes, we are currently working on that with our town planner. It has to be done specifically and legally, and it is definitely in the works.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Congratulations to our mayor. When I was coming to the meeting tonight, I was not.
Your name and address,
please. 46 Maple Street, Oyin, Owolabi. So I was not planning to speak tonight at this meeting, but then I just found it I felt like I should say something. So as a resident of the Wyoming section, and with children in a Wyoming school, I want to call your attention to a parking situation that's going on right now at the school. I just drafted a few things while I was sitting there. You know, we have an increased police presence in Wyoming school, and the police are giving tickets, and parents are having to park like blocks away to pick up their children, which I hear that we're trying to increase safety on Cypress Street to pick up like kindergartners, but it's actually not so, because parents are having to park blocks away and have to walk their kindergartners all the way to where they park, you know, to be able to pick up their children. I don't know what I'm asking the township to do, but I will like you guys to look into this. I don't think, because we don't have parking lots, as you know, with the middle school and high school in Wyoming school, and it's very difficult to actually park. Some people have babies who are sick that they have to log out of the car to come pick up their, you know, kindergartners and first graders. I don't know if there could be an ordinance, or I don't know what it is that one can put together for like an hour of pickup time where police are not ticketing us in Wyoming. We get tickets every day.
It was like that back in the 90s.
Yeah, and it's still like that, and it's extremely frustrating. I live about 2 blocks away, and my children cannot even walk to school because on the corner of Myrtle and Elm, there is like no stop sign there, and people speed through that street, and we don't want any, you know, children to get hurt walking to school. And we're talking about safety walks to school, but they're not able to walk to school either, and we're not able to even drive them to school because there's nowhere to park. So people are parking in people's driveways, and people are coming out yelling at each other. We don't have parking lots in
Let
Wyoming.
me ask, Jackie, when you went to the PTOC meeting, is this something they discussed?
We attended the, just the Knollwood section, this wasn't a general meeting.
I know that the officer, they are talking about Wyoming school section. It is being looked into. I personally don't know the solution, what they've
No,
come
I
up with.
think the PTOC has already been in discussions with the Traffic Bureau about this parking situation.
Okay, we used to be able to park on Cypress where the kindergartners come out and all the other students come out through the back, and now they put cones. There's already not enough parking for anyone to be taking more parking space that we have away, and we're being ticketed. So maybe the cops can actually slow down on the tickets, because it's like very irritating to get tickets while you're picking up your children.
Look, I think the point is though is that the representative that sits on the PTOC, which is sort of the safety group that works on each of the schools, and there's a representative from Wyoming.
I'm actually going to be in that group very soon, so yeah.
Great. So you'll be, you know, and so they brought this issue to the Traffic Bureau and to that group as a whole to discuss. And so specifically the parking is being addressed. I'm not necessarily going to speak to the ticketing, but you know, it's my understanding that this is a result of other things throughout the years that have generated changes in these situations. And we go through this quite often around the schools, is that sometimes, you know, a new group comes in and it has to change, or there's not an understanding of it. So I think it's just good to be involved in that group and sort of help them with that change. And,
But isn't it up to the town to actually put, because there's a no parking sign on the right side on Cypress?
But there may be a reason for that, and I can't speak to that reason because maybe the school requested it, or maybe the parents.
I'm on the school board. We didn't request that.
Well, I don't know if it was just. I don't know if it was the school. It may have been the Wyoming school, and the schools deal with that on a school by school basis to make sure traffic flow works around those various schools. So again, I think the PTOC is the best route to go, sort of get a better understanding of what's happening over there.
Okay, I'll talk to them, and then maybe I'll come back to the township.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up and speak now? Okay. We will now consider consent agenda resolutions. The resolutions listed on the consent agenda for consideration are as follows. We have the bills list, authorized refund of tax overpayments, authorized municipal alliance grant cycle, authorized emergency appropriation and contracts for the fire station number 2 boiler and heating system that's in desperate need of repair. Authorized 1-year option extension on contract for summer baseball camp, the Sports Academy of Millburn. Authorized application for the 2019 Community Forestry Program Green Communities. Authorized the execution of the 2019 Mayor's Council for the Raleigh Raway River. That's the group we had who met here last week. That's flooding. Authorized to cease assessment of the 2019 Downtown Municipal Development Alliance Special Improvement District taxes. The DMDA has disbanded. We will no longer be billing our property owners. That is to make that official. Authorized compliance and designating a $7 million bond anticipation note dated February 1st, 2019, payable January 30th, 2020. Authorized release of performance bond for self-storage facility at Bleecker Street. They're obviously finished and have their CO. Approval of various raffle licenses. Authorized contract with certain approved state contract vendors and certain Morris County Cooperative Pricing Council vendors for contracting. And that is it. Do anybody from the Township Committee have any questions on the consent agenda? Anybody from the public have any questions? Please come up.
Phil Kirsch, 93 Cedar Street. Resolution 19-055. I mean, I think I'm correct that this is a resolution to designate it as a qualified tax exempt obligation only. And I also think I'm correct that a bond anticipation note doesn't mean there's going to be a bond.
This is the sale of the township's bond anticipation note. So our debt that was sold as the 1-year obligation.
So this is the bond that we're
This is
stopping?
money that is this is money that was already allocated, authorized and issued and spent. So the money that $7 million worth of money that we've sold now as a bond anticipation note, it gets sold each year. And so this is the execution of that sale.
Oh, okay, that would explain why it's such a specific number.
Yeah, so it includes some of the money with regard to South Mountain improvements. It also includes some of the complete streets money that was already spent. So it's a very specific number.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? May I have a motion to approve the resolutions listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Krukus?
Yes.
Mayor Eklund?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Tonight we have two additional resolutions. The first one is Resolution 19059 to establish a Cultural Diversity and Arts Advisory Committee. We will be calling this CDAC, CDAAC. Whereas, I will go into this, whereas Millburn Township is a community composed of people with a wide variety of faiths, philosophies, and backgrounds, and can become stronger, more cohesive, and more interesting by embracing its diversity. And whereas the Township Committee would like to create a Cultural Diversity and Arts Advisory Committee in order to assist local cultural organizations in highlighting programs that recognizes and showcases the diversity in culture and art in Millburn Township. Therefore, be it resolved by the Township Committee in the Township of Millburn in Essex County of New Jersey on the 5th day of February 2019 as follows. There is hereby created a Cultural Diversity and Arts Advisory Committee wherein the purpose is to share the rich background of our community and seeking to be a resource for diversity needs within the community, assist local organizations in highlighting programs that recognizes the diversity and culture in Millburn Township, assist with requests for visual art placement in Millburn Township. The board shall consist of 7 or more Millburn Township residents appointed by the mayor with advice and consent to the Township Committee to serve until December 31st, 2019. And we do have some of our new members here I'd like to announce who we all are going to be. Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg and Cheryl Burstein will be the Township Committee members. If you just want to stand up and give a quick wave. Louis Shen, Millburn Board of Education representative. Dr. Roy Yu, Millburn Township resident. John Westfield Kwong, Millburn Township resident. Subathra Shidharan, Millburn Township resident. Jane Gomez, Millburn Township resident. Okay. Maggie Miggins, Millburn Township resident and Township Beautification League president. Christine Lassiter, Millburn Town resident. Dean Schulman, Millburn Township resident. Megan Garland, who is not here, she's the Millburn High School Guidance Counselor and Advisor to the National Gender and Sexuality Alliance. And the Paper Mill Playhouse has agreed to send us a representative. We had a great meeting with them yesterday, and they're on board that this is definitely a terrific direction that Millburn will be going. Take a vote. Okay, so there's anybody from the committee who'd like to discuss the mission of this and the purpose, or any questions or comments? Okay. May we
Have a motion?
have a motion?
Motion to approve resolution 19-059.
May we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Mary Phil Eglo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're excited about that. Thank you, all of our members. And we have another committee. We're starting with Resolution 19060. Provide for the confirmation of appointment of individuals to the Pedestrian and Circulation Traffic Ad Hoc Committee, will be known as PACS, P-A-C-T-S, and to confirm the duties of the ad hoc committee. Whereas Mayor Diane Fall Eglo would like to create an ad hoc committee to meet and provide recommendations to the Millburn Township Committee in order to improve traffic circulation and pedestrian safety in Millburn Township. Therefore, be it resolved by the Township Committee in the Township of Millburn in the County of Essex in the State of New Jersey on the 5th day of February 2019 as follows. There is hereby created a Pedestrian and Circulation Traffic Ad Hoc Committee wherein the goal is to offer recommendations to the Township Committee to assist in improving traffic circulation and pedestrian safety in Millburn Township. The mission of PACS is to assess and address elements of the township's infrastructure and roadways that have become troublesome to Millburn Township's commerce, emergency service delivery, traffic circulation, and pedestrian safety. This ad hoc committee will analyze the severity of and costs to remediate problem areas and bring recommendations to the Township Committee. Criteria for action items will be identified. Recommendations for correcting areas of concerns will be prioritized. The following persons hereby appointed to PACS, Pedestrian and Circulation Traffic Safety Ad Hoc Committee, through December 31st, 2019 are as follows. Diane Fall Eglo and Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg will be the Township Committee liaisons. Alex McDonald, Business Administrator or Designee. Christine Bugle, Assistant Township Engineer. Gaston Hubert, Planning Board Member. Marilee Riesenbach, Township Resident. Rich Keller, Township Resident. Michelle Reddick, Millburn Township Merchant. Bobby Engel, Millburn Township Property Manager. Andrew Morgan, Millburn Township Property Owner. We, as needed, will have the Police Chief, the Fire Chief, the DPW Director, the Paul Phillips Township Planner as needed, and our Traffic Consultant as needed. I think this is something that we will serve to address and assess and advise on some of the difficult areas that we have all been hearing from our residents and our merchants, and I hope this will be a positive step moving forward for the town as well. May I have a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Mary Phil Eglo?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I present for consider. Give people a minute to leave. Okay. These are all new committee members. They're gonna have a lot of work. Okay. Continuing with our business meeting. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2523-19, Ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7, Traffic, Section 7-29, Speed Limits of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Millburn. The purpose of amendment to the traffic ordinance is to authorize a reduction in the speed limit on Highland Avenue to 25 miles an hour for the entire length of the roadway. Tonight is a time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law. I declare the hearing open. Anybody have any comments or questions, concerns? Okay. I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on the final reading in accordance with law. May I have a second? Second?
Second.
Second? Okay. Roll call.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Mayor Phil Eglin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Jackie, I believe you have the ordinance?
Yes, I'd like to introduce for first reading, ordinance number 2524-19. This is an ordinance to amend and supplement Chapter 3 of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Millburn to prohibit short-term rentals. The purpose of this ordinance is to prohibit the advertisement by various means concerning the availability of a property for a short-term rental, a use prohibited pursuant to the zoning ordinance of the township and by this ordinance. Now, the purpose of this ordinance is to prohibit short-term rentals in our community, and a short-term rental is defined as anything less than 30 consecutive days. I believe the ordinance will preserve the residential integrity and character of our neighborhoods. We believe that this will protect our residents, prevent the encroachment from unknown inhabitants, and any ancillary issues that could develop in our township. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law and the item, and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, March 5th.
Do you have any comments from the committee?
I do.
Please, go ahead.
Well, Ms. Lieberberg, you said for a period of less than 30 days. The actual ordinance reads for a period of 30 days or less, which is important because landlords, owners of rental units, which are included in this ordinance, often extend leases on a month-to-month basis. Sometimes give leases on a month-to-month leases, but typically they're holdover lessees, so they're extended on a month-to-month. If the landlord allowed for a month-to-month continuation of a long-term lease, that would render that month-to-month, 30 days or less, void under this statute, potentially canceling out that month-to-month lease. A prudent lessee could look at the ordinance, claim it's against public policy, and not even pay. I think that that's an unintended consequence of this ordinance.
So how do you believe it should read?
Well, you could exclude month-to-month tenancies, or you can make it for a period of 32 days. Because typically, month-to-month leases are 30 days, sometimes 31. Typically, this is called month-to-month, so you could make it 32 days rather than 30 days or less.
I'll defer to council.
I think that's a good point. I mean, 30 days is, as we think we all learned in law school, you can have a lease for 30 days, and it's a 1-month lease, and it's a separate undertaking. I think there's a way to address it, however. First thing that occurs to me with respect to it is, it's not really a situation which is meant to be intended to be regulated by this ordinance. I think the township community is trying to regulate the in and out. Somebody comes in for a week, 3 days, 2 rooms, 3 rooms, and
yeah, I know, it's
the
not,
continuation
it's
of
an
a
unintended consequence,
Yes.
what I said, but
and I agree.
3:20-3 specifically covers lessors.
Well, here's what my suggestion is. I think, and incidentally, none of the municipalities who have adopted these ordinances have thought of that.
None of them have
point that
retained me, so
you
you know,
raised.
if they did, they would have this,
But
they wouldn't have this problem.
But I think there's a fix. If you look at the definition of what a short-term rental is, at the end of it, it lists a number of things that are excluded, so as not to be included within the concept.
Yeah, I know, but I read that, Kit, but 3-20-2, the definition giveth, protecting the landlord, and 3-20.3 taketh away, because it starts with the codicil, notwithstanding anything to the contrary, and that only can be constructed to exclude what 3-20-2 would give in terms of landlord protection. So we don't have to debate in a public setting the language, but I think landlords need to be protected on month-to-month extended leases. Otherwise, the prudent tenant would not pay. I wouldn't.
Could we not amend this 3-20-2 to omit the extension of an existing lease for month-to-month extensions?
Yeah, I have
by
no
the
opinion
same
on how you
tenant?
do it.
Oh, okay.
I'm not gonna offer any language. I could if asked, but I don't care how it's done, just I think that the landlords need to be protected in that situation.
So would Kit's rewording of that be acceptable to you?
If the landlords are protected on month-to-month leases.
I think they would be. Yeah.
So that's the only thing I care about, half the landlords of Millburn Township.
So we have two choices. We could amend the wording, or we could table this.
Well, I think that you have to, I think Robert's rules require the ordinance be presented at the next meeting, and however it's amended for first reading.
Okay.
I don't think you can amend it on the fly.
Can we amend it on the fly?
Actually, Roberts is not,
I know it's an agenda thing. I derive that Roberts from, I know Roberts doesn't prescribe to this, but it derives from the changing of the agenda. So
it's really a matter of the township's policy. If on first reading, before you introduce, in the course of discussing the ordinance, you were to decide to make changes, that could be done. However, what you have typically done is where there's going to be a substantive change, you put it off to the next meeting, and it comes back redrafted. So it's your policy call.
Is this considered a substantive change that we would want to table this for the next meeting?
Well, it would be the kind of change, if it came up on second, you couldn't adopt it because it would be a substantive change.
I want to make one other comment. You're going to probably have to make a change to proposed ordinance 25-25-19 as well.
They both have the same definition, you're right.
You might want to just
So table both of them
right.
and redo the wording and move it forward properly.
Right.
So can I have a motion to table these, can I do both resolutions together? Can we table both together?
Well, you can just direct me to go back and redraft them and put them on the agenda next time.
We just don't have to second it, we don't have to.
Okay.
So,
There you go.
nothing.
There you go, hand that right off.
Okay,
All right.
got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Okay, we have one item of new business. Okay. This has come to us by the way of a realtor who has gotten this by the way of the New Jersey Board of Realtors. And right now, you all see, when there's an open house, the realtors have those sandwich boards. Right now, that is against ordinance. And like other things, it's not necessarily enforced. But we want to protect our realtors from being ticketed for something. We want to add this and amend our existing township sign ordinance to allow realtors to put their boards up without risk of being fined or getting in trouble with the town. So this is something that we want to talk about amongst ourselves and see if there's any objections or questions from our committee. Are you comfortable with this as a change?
Well, have we heard from our realtors in town? Do
Our
our
realtors-
realtors have an
yes.
opinion or wish to be heard?
Our realtors do want this. It came from our realtors, which is why we are doing this, to protect them.
Did it come from realtors plural or a realtor?
It came from a realtor who has spoken to other realtors and came back to me that they are accepting of this and they are looking for this to be done.
Yeah, and I think it should also.
I'm trying to provoke you.
Right.
But I think it should also be stated that we were approached by NJ Realtor, which is a group on behalf of realtors as well, and it may just I'm not sure if anybody has privy to the language that is involved in that.
It's something to start the conversation because it has come to our attention. And we have a realtor in the audience who would like to speak to this.
Thank you so much. Good evening, I'm Maggie Miggins. I live at 34 South Terrace in Short Hills, and I am the realtor that did bring it to your attention. I was contacted by the New Jersey Association of Realtors, and they've asked that this ordinance be adopted by the township. As it is now today, we're breaking the law by putting up these tent signs. They're only for open house purposes, Saturdays or Sundays, from 2 to 4 or 1 to 3. And what we're trying to do is direct people in who are new to the town. Especially you'll start to see in these coming months different New York license plates, people driving around. It's a great way to bring people to our open houses. So we'd like not to break the law, because that is what we're doing right now, and that could get us in a lot of trouble, and it's just not ethical for us to do it. So we're asking that you do switch it. The realtors are pretty good about picking up the signs. They pay for them themselves, so if they don't pick them up and they get broken, then it just costs them more money. We pay for everything as realtors. We have to pay for all our signage. So we'd really like it if you would adopt these. And I did speak to, just so you know, I contacted the brokers of all the companies in our town, and they are very much for this.
And that's important. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much. Questions?
No? I think we have another realtor looking to step up behind you.
Hi, my name is John Westphal Kwong, 45 Mechanic Street. I heard the request for more than one realtor, and since Maggie had actually done the request, I didn't know, but we're grateful to her for doing so. It's definitely a discussion amongst other realtors, and it provides a challenge for us in this particular town versus others. And I'm not going to repeat everything Maggie said, other than ditto. So thank you.
Thank you. So amongst, oh yes, please. Oh, wait 1 second, Mr. Mazer. Committee
Because
woman first.
I haven't had a chance to see this, but is there a time limitation in this ordinance?
It's in bold. Where is that? Let's see.
3.
Yeah, 5E it starts. Right?
Okay,
5E and it goes across, yeah.
okay.
Maggie, did you have a chance to see what the particulars are in this ordinance?
I did not. If you think enough to tell us.
Okay, I will. Temporary real estate direction signs shall be defined as removable freestanding signs to be in or on the ground not to exceed 18 inches in height, 24 inches in width, and no higher than 30 inches above existing grade. Signs may be placed in the public right-of-way, however, no sign shall create a sight triangle obstruction for motorists or obstruction to pedestrians. No sign shall be placed on private property without the written permission of the property owner. A temporary real estate directional sign may only be installed during the hours between 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on the day of the open house. Signs must be removed by 6 p.m. on the day of the open house. Now, this is where you guys want to listen in. No more than 2 temporary real estate directional signs shall be placed for an open house. These signs must identify the broker sponsoring the open house and a phone number. A temporary real estate directional sign, as defined herein, shall not include any illumination, nor shall there be affixed thereon any balloon, streamer, or other decorative accessory. Ooh, I hear a moan. Any violation of this section will be enforced as defined in section 419. So I guess the sticking points might be the number of signs and no balloons.
What about the public right-of-way? What's the public right-of-way?
How is a realtor supposed to know
Yeah.
where there's an obstruction?
Okay. Well, first,
I can appreciate the balloon, Maggie Megan's 34 South Terrace. I can appreciate the balloons just from the environment. I can appreciate that. The amount of signs. If you have a house, let's just say you've got a house on Hartshorn Drive and you're bringing someone in maybe from Parsonage Hill, maybe from White Oak Ridge, that's 1, that's 2. You're putting 1 on the house itself, that's 3 signs right there.
Yeah, I think
in
2.
addition to the sign that may be hanging, which are for 95%, 98% of the time professionally installed, so now you're up to 4 signs.
The sign at the house is excluded.
Yeah.
The sign at the house, but you
Like
still
the for
could,
sale sign. Just-
you still could, here's where while I don't use the signs because I'm breaking the law, so I don't wish to break the law, a seller gets really angry, our homeowners get really angry and saying, well, such and such is using signs, why aren't you using signs? Because we're breaking the law. So that's where a lot of the headache does come in addition to being able to bring people to the open houses. But I think to limit them to 2,
Right.
I don't know.
I think that was just something we had started with. Do you find that most open houses require 3 signs?
I would say I wouldn't limit. I mean, nobody's putting out 20, but
Right.
sometimes, when the market shifts, and that can happen, you might, as a company, do a like an open house Lollapalooza kind of thing, and then we might want 75 signs all over that. They're just, you could have 20 agents wanting to do it, and you're seeing all this activity. It just builds some momentum. So I don't know about limiting them. I think the bigger problem was making sure that they got taken down. And I have to say, as far as the balloons, John, you can speak to this. I don't personally use balloons. I don't know how many. There was a helium problem, believe it or not. There was a helium shortage where we couldn't get helium to do the balloons. So I don't see as many balloons as there used to be.
What do you think a fair number would be if we wanted to put a number in the ordinance?
4.
4.
I'd double it. Yeah.
I have a question for Ms. Miggins.
Yes, Mr. Levy.
Also, in the written summary, in the summary was that you had to secure written permission from the homeowner. How often do you realistically get written permission?
Well, it's a rare day that you're putting a sign on someone else's property. You're not doing it. They're in the street. They're really in the street. So to not cover the crosswalk, as it were. So getting back to say you have a listing on Long Hill Drive. You might put one at the corner of Long Hill and White Oak. You might put one at the corner of, Long Hill and Parsonage, but you're putting them on the streets. You're not putting them on people's private properties.
I see them they're not on the streets, they're on the grassy area,
They're on people's lawns,
They're on
basically.
people's-
No one complains.
Well, who owns the first 10 feet of the land?
It depends.
The streets.
It
Depends on the street.
Pardon?
Depends on the street.
I mean, there's on the sidewalks in South Mountain section, I believe. That's
Yeah.
what I'm more familiar with.
I don't know. I don't think we're putting them on people's
I'm
homes.
trying to relieve you of the burden of getting written permission, but if
Yeah, I
you'd
don't
ra-
want
if you'd
written.
rather
I
have
don't
it,
think
then-
we'd want written permission either, quite frankly. But and it's a rare day that I've ever had anyone complain about a sign. The biggest thing is you make sure the realtors take their signs
Well,
at the
you
end of the
perhaps
day.
have more integrity than some of your competitors.
Do you know what? They all have integrity.
Okay.
So maybe I will give you a copy of this because it was not.
Sure.
And maybe you can come back to us with some fair and reasonable suggestions. That
Be
we
my
can work
pleasure.
with. Okay.
John and I will work on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be super. And get input from the other realtors and.
Sure.
I think I would
Okay.
hand this to
May
you
I?
now.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Does John wants one also?
Oh,
Don't
you
make
do.
a copy. Here, you can have mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Mazer?
Yes, Ed Mazer, Greenwood Drive. I was a member of the planning board at the time the original ordinance was adopted about 30 years ago, and it was intentionally done to include the real estate trailblazer signs. Periodically, Tim Gordon did send letters to all of the real estate agents in town telling them that this was prohibited. Certainly the intent then was that the town did not want the visual clutter that these intend, be it temporary. The thought now is certainly I think they're needed to a lesser extent with GPS that people have. I don't think too many people are looking to buy a house in this town and do not know how to use GPS in their cars. Certainly, I haven't seen the ordinance, but you've got to regulate the number, the size, the duration, as you mentioned. The question would be then, what about estate sales? You've got people, certainly I think there were signs up in South Mountain today for estate sales. What about garage sales? Are we discriminating against residents in town? I think you're on a slippery slope with this. One of the things, and I'm going back in my memory 30 years, we did have real estate agents come in and discuss this, and I recall one saying that basically the open houses were primarily done to get names of people for future listings, rather the neighbors who were curious, rather than people coming in from out of town that needed this. So I think there is certainly, this is not the major issue that you're going to be faced with, but certainly I think there is another side to it that was done certainly when we adopted the original sign ordinance 30 years ago, and I would ask that you also consider those factors in making a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak to this ordinance proposal? Okay, may I have a motion to
Wait.
adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry.
I think there's another item of new business.
Oh, I'm sorry.
because
Do you have new business?
Tara was telling me that she went to a planning meeting.
Okay,
And-
so
and-
I was gonna actually wait.
Oh, you-
I feel good about waiting till the
You wa-
next
you wanna
meeting
wait?
to
Okay.
bring it up. I feel good about waiting till the next meeting to bring it up.
Okay.
That's
And
it.
if you'd like to put it on the agenda as an item of new business, we would all know and
Absolutely,
be
we'll
ready
meet and
for
we'll
it.
talk about it.
Perfect, thank you.
Great.
All right, would you like to make that motion to
I
adjourn?
would love to make a motion to adjourn.
May I have a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Let me do the gavel.
There you go.
All right.
I did.
Is it too late?